Psychologically, it's so easy to swipe a card than it is to depart with cash. And I truly believe this is the way the system has been set up for us. There's two parts of the brain that are at work when it comes to spending. There's a part of the brain called the limbic system. That's the impulsive gratification part of the brain that I want it now, I'm going to get it now. And those parts of the brain are in constant conflict daily. And the more you exercise one part of that brain, that will be the dominating part of the brain. So the next time you want to buy something, you have to think life is about balance. It's okay to enjoy your money and enjoy your life, as long as you're doing it the right way with the right financial education. Talk about the psychology of money, and what that is it's your knowledge, it's your behaviors, it's your attitudes, your beliefs towards budgeting, saving, spending. And everybody's psychology of money is different. A budget is a powerful weapon. You should never see a budget as something as restrictive. It's something like a roadmap. Having a budget, you are in control of not only the situation but your emotions. I was working in a bank and I was seeing how much money they was making from people like you and me through interest charges and the products that we got from them. And I thought, hold on a minute, I could do the same thing for myself, what banks do to me. So for example,
you're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people.
Like you have to be able to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like be comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you grow up in ends, you don't realise it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We have a special guest in the building, Norma, who is a Harley Street money management consultant, psychotherapist, author and life coach with over 20 years experience in the financial sector and 17 years experience as a qualified psychotherapist. Norma, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to be here.
I'm glad to have you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I haven't had somebody on the podcast that has as much experience as you have in both the finance world and from, a mental health perspective. And we obviously wanted to have this conversation to bring more awareness to mental health. So I'm really excited about this conversation. So who is Norma?
Norma Cassius is a money management and mental health consultant. I worked within the financial sector for over 20 years. And whilst my children were growing up, I felt like I wanted to do something a bit more meaningful. So when they became teenagers, I then switched careers. Actually, I'm a Christian, so in church I was doing some voluntary work on the counselling Hope line. And a lot of people kept on remarking that I was, really able to engage with people, and people were really benefiting from the work that I was doing with them. So someone suggested that why don't you find out about doing something, having a profession in it. And then I made some inquiries, and it just went on from there.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so, nearly almost 20 years of being a psychotherapist.
That is amazing. That's amazing.
It has, and it really is amazing because I'm really making a difference in the life of people. So to see that metamorphosis transformation, do you know what I mean? I'm working with people that come in that feel hopeless and they leave hopeful. What a powerful position to be in, to be able to make that difference.
Yeah, and you're doing it in the intersection of not just mental health and money, which is quite unique. I feel like more therapists should really try to lean on that, especially in the we're in the cost of living crisis at the moment, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that, being able to use some of those techniques that you've learned on the money side, which is why I'm excited for this conversation today. So, let's talk about your story. Where are your parents from? I always start it like that, yeah.
My parents are from the Caribbean,
Okay.
Jamaica.
Okay.
So I've learned my money management practices from my parents. That's where it started. Because back in the 50s, my dad, I will call him now, just reflecting back, our undercover entrepreneur. Because back in the 50s, he had 2 houses in Jamaica and a dry cleaners. He then came to England, so he's part of the Windrush generation, and he purchased the largest house on the road, right? I think that's where I get my high chest from.
Okay.
Because he really maximised his money. He wanted the best out of his money. He made his money work for him. Hence, that's why he was into property, you know.
Okay.
My mum, on the other hand, between my parents, they had 6 children. No, my dad wanted the best of everything, including West Indian food and all of that. And he was quite frugal, to be honest with you. He gave my mum a set amount of money every week. I'm sure it was the same amount of money for like a decade or two.
Yeah.
But regardless, he wanted, you know, the West Indian food and all of that. And my mum, you know, reflecting back on it now, it definitely wasn't. It couldn't have been easy because she had 6 kids. You know, she had to get the food out of that money, had clothes. So she used to sew. She used to sew by hand. So she made our underwear, she made our clothes and everything just to make sure it felt like we had everything. We lacked nothing. But now reflecting back on that, I know it definitely must have been a skill because she really made it work. She was very, very resourceful.
Wow, that's amazing. And I guess what did you feel like you learned from her resourcefulness?
Yeah.
In that,
I learned that, you know, whether you've got what you need to have or not, you can make it work. You can make it happen. Coming from the Caribbean, they had to be resourceful, right? When you think about oxtail, jerk chicken and all of that, that was like the food that the people on the plantation, the slaves had to eat. They made use of it. That's what, you know, the slave masters didn't want the oxtail. They didn't want, or chicken that was like going off or whatever. They seasoned it up, jerked it up and made a meal out of it. So, you know, Caribbeans and like even from Africa and background, we're quite resourceful when it comes to making things work with our food and all the rest of it. So there was a few times we ran out of like squash. And so there was a drink called sugar and water. I don't know if you heard of that before. So we used to have, you know, just a glass of water with sugar in it and a slice of lemon.
Okay.
So that was our drink. Do you know what I mean? So we never lacked nothing. It was always that my mum would make it work. And so what I learned was, you know, there's always a way around it. There's always a way around it. I know at one point in my life, I became a single parent. And at that time, I had 3 children aged 6 years and under. I had a mortgage to pay, a car to run, all on a part-time salary.
Yeah.
And so I thought if my mum could make it work with 6, even though she wasn't a single mother, but she was working under a tight budget, I could do that with 3 children. And so I had to be so resourceful with every penny and every pound. I mean, I used to shop in like 4 supermarkets every week.
Wow.
Exactly. And I used to say, I used to see something in a shop which might have been 5 or 10 pence cheaper. And I used to say to my children, oh, I forgot something. You know, we need to go back. And they say, Mummy, we want to go home and whatever. Oh, obviously, they know my story now. So they now know it's because I saw something 5 pence or 10 pence cheaper.
Okay.
But a lot of people would think, oh, I can't be bothered and do without. No, I knew that if I went back, I could get what I wanted and all our needs were met. That was my kind of mindset. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we never lacked nothing at all. It wasn't easy. I mean, I had to walk around with like a notepad in my bag, calculating everything. If I thought that I needed something, I'd write it down. And at the end of each day, I'll be calculating. My brain was like a computer, just adding up everything that we needed to make sure that I was, you know, I had enough money within my budget to buy everything that we needed.
Yeah.
So again, just like my mum, we lacked nothing. It felt like we had everything, but that was it was such a challenging time in my life, to say the least. I mean, talking about 4 supermarkets, my life changed when my friend introduced me to Lidl's.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, I could be an advocate for Lidl's because I could then
I like Lidl,
yeah, exactly. I could do all my shopping in one supermarket. Do you know what I mean? So the pressure of running from one shop to another, that was over.
Yeah.
And I just became more and more resourceful. So every year the bank would give us an annual bonus, and every year I used that money to fly my children out abroad.
Okay.
And people was like that I worked with, Norma, how are you able to do it? Because I knew my numbers. I knew exactly what money I had coming in, and I knew exactly what was going out and where it was going. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, going to the airport and that, going on holiday, my children was like, their rucksacks were filled to the brim.
Yeah.
No, it weren't with electronic toys or dollies. It was rice, sugar, biscuits, crisps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when we got to our destination, all I had to buy was meat and vegetables.
Okay.
So the money I had really was for our spending money. But again, me
right,
being
yeah,
resourceful,
yeah.
making it work. So my children, it was like we'd done all the Caribbean. We weren't going to Butlins or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with that, mind you. Those holidays and sometimes just as expensive as going abroad.
Yeah.
But, you know, I culturised them, do you know what I mean? By taking them abroad, showing them a different life. They saw the struggle that I was in the whole year round. So why not balance it out with a holiday? Because this is what can be accomplished if you work diligently and make your money work for you.
Yeah, amazing. And I definitely do want to touch on that period a little bit later. We'll definitely get there.
Mm-hmm.
So were you born here in the UK?
I was born in the UK.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
Bow.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was it like during those
to
times?
be honest with you, I didn't really experience any racism, or not much at all. There's 6 siblings, 5 girls, and I'm the youngest of the girls. And then I had one brother that was the youngest. My parents didn't stop till they got what they wanted, right? A boy.
Yeah.
And so my siblings say that I was spoiled, but because I was the youngest girl, right?
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed my childhood. I mean, there were times when the ice cream fan used to come, Tony Bell. I'm sure you probably might not remember that. The ice cream fan used to come round, and all my white friends, their parents could afford the ice cream man, but that wasn't my case. You know, they used to get dollies, and I never had no toys.
Okay.
Didn't have no toys at all. And what my oldest sister used to do, because we didn't have any toys, she used to sit there and like rock in the settee. And that's a habit that we all learned. That was our comfort. We all sit there and rock, and we still do that today.
Okay.
That was
making do with a little.
Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I really enjoyed my childhood. As I say, we didn't lack anything. I didn't really, although I didn't have some of the things that some of my white counterpart friends may have had, I was still very happy because I felt love. But our parents, I don't know about your parents, but from the Caribbean background, it weren't that I love you and they're kissing me. I'd see like my white friends' mums kiss them when they dropped them off to school and all of that. I didn't get that. But I still knew I was loved because all my needs were met. Do you know what I mean? We didn't go without nothing. And I guess that's the way my parents showed me that they loved us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And then finance, how did you get into that? What was the reason for going into that?
Okay, so back in the day, Santander used to be called Abbey National.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, you brought me back.
Yeah,
oh, yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And like my dad used to say, you know, make sure you get a good job and, you know, do well at school and whatever. And I used to walk past Abbey National, my local one, that was in Roman Road Market. And I used to say, one day I'm going to work in that bank. And so said, so done.
Yeah.
And so I started off part-time. And how I got that job, I'm a Christian, so I really believe in, you know, doing the right thing. I was going on holiday one year, and I went to the bank to draw out my spending money. And when I checked it, I got out of the bank and I checked it, the cashier gave me £100 over. So I had a choice to make. Do I go back and give it to her, or do I keep it for myself? Being the Christian that I was, I said, no, she probably would get in trouble for, do you know what I mean, a till being short. So I went back and I gave her that money. And she didn't even really say thank you. Do you know what I mean? She just was just like shocked that I gave it back. I suppose it was probably a shock that I was giving her back that money. But having said that, when I went back to work and I told them, they were saying, you should have kept the money. You would have had it for your spending money and all the rest of it. But because I gave her back the money, I felt confident to go back into that bank, which I did, and I asked for a job. And I got a job from the same branch that I get. Now, had I kept that money, I would have avoided that branch just in case they knew me, and that was the branch near to where I worked. Yeah. And so it started from there, and it went on from there, and it went, you know, got some great friends along the way that for working, you know, within the bank for all those years.
Wow. So what was some of the things that you were doing in your 20 years?
So I started off as a cashier. That's like the first. That's like the entry point. Then I was a control cashier, so you take care of the bullion and all of that, and all the cashiers' tills and all the rest of it. I was a relationship manager for. I ended up as a relationship manager after I had my children. I was working in the bank a few years, and then I had my children, and then I was in a relationship that was very. It was a domestic violence relationship. So managing that and 3 children, I became a single mother when my children were 6, 3 and 2. I didn't want to take on a role that was quite intensive because of my home life. And so I wanted to be able to, when I do go to work, I can just switch off and do the work that I need to do, as opposed to taking a really intensive role where I really needed to concentrate. I never had that mental capacity to be able to do that. So that's why my roles in the bank for all that time was I mean, I could have had much bigger roles and larger roles, but I just chose to be sensible with the roles that I was doing, so that I could do them and do them well.
Yeah. Wow. So that's a tough situation to be with. How did you manage those two situations?
It was very, very challenging, because I'm actually now an ambassador for survivors of economic abuse, because that's what I experienced with the father of my children. I suppose a lot of women can identify with this when, you're waiting for the child maintenance to come. When I was in the relationship with him, it was like I used to get the money like on a Friday from him, and come the Wednesday, I used to get pains in my chest, in my stomach, my sweaty palms, a constant headache, worrying about, one, was I going to get money? Two, would it be enough for what we needed? And three, would I get it before the shops close? So that was a constant cycle that I was in. And at that time, when I was in the relationship with the father of my 3 children, I was at that point working just on a Saturday in Abbey National, just to keep my feet in the door. But then when I ended the relationship, I had to fling myself back into work. Of course, because I had a mortgage to pay, a car to run, and 3 children to look after. I had a lot of financial responsibility. And so I worked 4 hours every day for, 5 days a week, just to make sure, I was, able to manage my money and look after my children. So me being an ambassador for survivors of economic abuse, I know what that, I've experienced it.
Yeah. Wow. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that time again, because I think it's very important, especially from like a mental health perspective.
Absolutely.
Like you were saying, right? Like you were feeling, that anxiety due to money being withdrawn from you, which is actually quite interesting. I think a lot of people wouldn't even really maybe appreciate that maybe that's happening to them, or they have those feelings around money. So I think it's going to be important for us to discuss it.
Sure.
So you also then, obviously you talked a little bit about it. You then became like an accredited psychotherapist, right?
Yeah.
I guess what does your work currently involve around, like what was some of the stuff that you do with your clients?
Okay, so a lot of the clients, they come in with all different issues, because being a psychotherapist for nearly 2 decades, I've worked in many clinical settings, from domestic violence to gendered violence. So that's violence against women, any violence. A lot of the clients that I worked with at that time were people that have experienced childhood sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, domestic violence, rape, a lot of rape. So that was quite deep and quite heavy. That was before I became self-employed and had my own private practice. I've worked with substance misuse. And that's one of the coping strategies that people use when they're dealing with their mental health in relation to their finances. Because people need to cope one way or another.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a therapeutic intervention, meaning they don't go and seek some help, they just try and figure it out themselves and work it out themselves. So now I have my private practice in Harley Street. It's a different clientele, but they have the same problems. It's just on a larger scale. So I've worked within the community. I've worked on, the different stages of the economic scale, dealing with psychosocial issues. So that talks about people's environment, their demographics, their salary, their home environment. All those issues affect people's finances, affect what kind of salaries they can command. Do you know what I mean? And so the clients that I work with now, so when I see somebody may come in for like depression, but then when I start working with them and we, doing like deep exploration, it's like, what is the reason for the depression? Because there's a root issue for everything, And sometimes some people are so psychologically traumatized that, because there's 3 levels of consciousness. There's the unconscious, where trauma is really, that's where it lives. And it lives there because it's people can't tolerate to bring it up, just to visit it. that's traumatic and re-traumatizing within itself. Then there's the subconscious, where things are sort of like at the back of our mind that we can kind of easily recall. And there's a state of consciousness. That's where me and you are today. You know, you're in this room, you're speaking to me, you're aware of your surroundings. So people come in for all different reasons. And what I found is that a lot of people were coming in for different reasons, but then a lot of it was relating to money issues.
Right. Okay.
Especially in this cost of living crisis. I mean, I've had clients like in Harley Street. One guy was saying like he flew his girlfriend out to Paris for lunch. I thought, could I be your girlfriend? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and then he's come back looking at his finances and he can't understand, you know, what's going on with his money.
Yeah.
We live in a society where a lot of people, you know, we're using our cards for mainly everything, right? And psychologically, it's so easy to swipe a card than it is to depart with cash. And I truly believe this is the way the system has been set up for us. Do you know what I mean? When you do a transaction in a supermarket or whatever and it's cashless, that limit has gone up to £100, right? And so it's so easy just to use your card for whatever. So people will look at their account one day, go back a few days later and think their account's been hacked. Because where's my money gone? It was there a couple of days. It's because you've been swiping left, right. You're not keeping no account. There's no tracking. There's no nothing. The stress of looking at your account and you've got 2 weeks before payday, it's just that in itself does affect your mental health. The stress of it, the anxiety, because you know you've got things to pay for, right? And you've not got the money in there to do that.
Yeah, it's you're so right about like the swiping thing. There's almost like not a feeling to it.
There isn't a feeling. There's a disconnection.
Yeah.
There's a connection to money, right?
Yeah. When you've got it in cash and you're like, okay, I've got to count it. Then you know. It's very different to tap, 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 and then
Tap,
you
tap,
don't know how
tap
much
till
to
there's
do.
nothing to tap.
Exactly. Oh my God. So, okay. So, you know, you talked a little bit about it, right? So I guess from your experience of, you know, working with clients, why is it that some people are stressed about money, whether it's like they don't have enough money in the bank or they spend too much money or they have debt? What's like the reasons for that?
Well, the Financial Times did some research. They found out that 90% of people in the UK admitted that they had no financial education or very little. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, financial education, most of us have not had that financial education. So where have we learned our financial practices from? Is it our home environment? Is it our own experiences? Is it our friends? Is it our faith? You know, it could be a combination of all of that. So that means we don't give money any regard. Something that you don't regard, you just use anyway. You don't really respect. So because we've not been taught it in schools and it's not really at the forefront of our mind in terms of, I really need to pay attention to this. Do you know what I mean? That causes so much anxiety and stress because people don't have confidence with their money. Then they're not in control of it. Do you know what I mean? And if you don't really think about, I need to sit down and really study my money. People don't, from a psychological perspective, I talk about the psychology of money. And what that is it's your knowledge, it's your behaviours, it's your attitudes, your beliefs towards budgeting, saving, spending and making financial decisions. Now, if you've not got the knowledge of how to do that, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
Where does that come from? And everybody's psychology of money is different. You know, do you have siblings?
Yeah.
So you grow up in a household and how you manage your money will maybe be completely different to your sibling. And you're thinking we've all been exposed to the same upbringing. You know, how comes it's so different? Because your perception and how you've experienced what you've been exposed to, you've internalized that completely different to the next person. So if that happens in your household, how much more is it when you meet a partner?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's different perspectives and it's like your own take on things, and you kind of also you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
Right?
This is it.
That's the thing, right? You don't know where you're going wrong. Why is
Absolutely.
things going wrong? You don't know that it's because like the lack of education, because it's actually a good way to do things. So,
Absolutely.
you know, it's very interesting.
It is. And like the Mental Health Foundation state that 94% of people in the UK have money worries.
Yeah.
So they worry about their money. So you can see the lack of financial education and worrying about money it's just such a powerful combination, having the work that I do. Because, you know, if an unexpected event happens, a job loss, you fall ill. Do you know what I mean? Any unexpected event, your car could break down. You haven't got the money for that. What does that, you know, what does that do to you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Straight away you feel anxious. How am I going to pay for that? Where am I going to? You know, all these thoughts and feelings come. If you've not got an emergency fund, if you don't even know what an emergency fund is, or don't know how to put one together, you're not in control of your finances, and it's the unknown that causes the financial anxiety. Not knowing how you're going to pay that bill or pay for something that needs to be done. Do you know what I mean? And still pay, you know, meet all your outgoings, especially if you've got a family. Do you know what I mean? And the cost of living, I don't know about you, but every time you go into a supermarket, everything's gone up.
It's always going up.
It's
all
evil.
The time. Yeah.
It's gone up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a grandmother now, but I feel sorry for people with young children because everything is so expensive. Now, like me, when I think back to when I was a single parent, so for example, I would cook a whole chicken on a Sunday, have it on the Monday, slice off some of the breasts on Tuesday. I'd cook some rice and we've got chicken fried rice. Do you know what I mean? It's about making it work. A lot of people don't do that or don't know how to. So food for a lot of people, when you hear on the news and that people are going hungry and all the rest of it. Again, I go back to my culture. We know how to make things. If you've got an egg and you've got some rice, that's egg fried rice to me. Do you know what I mean? It's about
being resourceful as
absolutely.
much as you can,
If you've got fresh orange juice and you've got fizzy water, to me that's tango.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about how do you, and a lot of people don't know what to do. They may have these things in their house, but don't know what to do with it. So they're hungry, their children are hungry. And this is what I teach as well, how to be resourceful with what you have. It's about what do you have. A lot of people think, I haven't got nothing. You got bread and you got an egg, that's French toast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about how do you make things work with what have you got in your hand? The Bible says, what have you got in your hand? He said that to Moses when Moses got to the Red Sea and didn't know how to cross it. Do you know what I mean? Lift up your rod. And the Red Sea parted. What do you have? What, your finances, what do you really have? Because I run a financial boot camp, and pre-boot camp I prepare my clients for the day, because it's a whole day. It's an intense boot camp. You're coming to work, right? And I ask them to send me prior to the boot camp their income and expenses, which they do. When we get to the boot camp, they are hundreds of pounds out.
Wow.
A lot of it's guesswork, right? Hundreds of pounds.
They don't know how to do it.
No. They're just guessing how much they're spending on shopping. So I help them find all of their financial leakages, because that's what's happening. If you're getting paid, a lot of people are getting paid decent salaries. I mean, quite a few of my clients have felt that they need a second job.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because they just can't make ends meet.
Yeah.
They're living at home with their parents, but still can't make. How can
Really?
that? What? Yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. It's lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Tommy Mallet said, a lot of people are going broke trying to look rich.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they want to keep up with whatever that Instagram lifestyle that will just, do you know what I mean? It will just send anybody's mental health, off the rails.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of pressure to keep up. There's a lot of pressure to...
A lot of keeping up with the Joneses.
Absolutely. And a lot of people would rather be broke. So for a woman to go out for the night, by the time she's done her hair, her nails... I mean, I've done conferences before, and I've, gone to the pound shop and bought them stick-on nails for the night for £1. Do you know what I mean? It still looks good. Who would know?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As again, I'm in a completely different financial position than when I was I was a single parent, but I'm still resourceful. Yeah. I'm not wasteful with my money, and you can still look good. Do you know what I mean? Without getting yourself into debt.
Yeah. I love that. So what do you think are some of the ways that we can combat the feelings of stress when we think about money?
I think the first point is know your numbers.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? Know your income and your expenditure, and know where that money's going. Now, there's so many great, before, back in the day, I was, using my notepad and pen, but there's these great apps. I mean, everybody has a bank account. Most bank accounts have budgeting apps on them, which are free, part of your banking service. So, and these bank accounts, they do everything from locating what areas you're spending most of your money. They can help you save. They can help you put your money in different pockets. Do you know what I mean? So there's no excuse anymore of tracking, and they can track every penny and every pound. A lot of people ain't got time. It's too long. I ain't got time to find out where my money's going. But yet you're suffering psychologically because you're so stressed and anxious because you don't know where your money's going. Put these apps to use. Financial tycoons, they know where every penny and every pound is going.
Yeah.
They
So
know.
we're saying like the millionaires. The
Absolutely.
billionaires.
They
Yeah,
know.
yeah, of course,
So
yeah,
how much more us
Yeah.
that are not there,
Yeah.
how much more should we be tracking there? Because they know how much they got to save, invest and spend on what they need to spend on.
Yeah.
People that I work with don't have a clue. I was working with somebody that she had a credit card and these credit cards are criminal, borderline criminal, I would say anyway. And I said, what is the APR, the annual percentage rate, which cards charge? And she said, oh, it's 2% something. I said, there's no way it can be 2%. I said, bring me your bank statement. When I saw a bank statement, it was 2%, but it was 2%. It was 2.79 per month.
Okay. So she thought it annually is 2.7.
Absolutely. She said, I saw that there was this figure on my credit card statement, but I just thought that was just them giving me an example. I said, no, that is the actual figure of your monthly amount you're paying on the debt that you owe. So somebody could owe £2,000 on their credit card, paying the minimum amount, because you can pay the minimum amount. That could take them nearly 20 years to pay off.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the thing, right? That leads me on to debt, right? Debt is like one of those things where like it's got a negative connotation for sure. But from your experiences, right? Why is it that people get into significant amounts of debt? What's the main reasons? Obviously, even the clients that you've worked with as well.
Because they lack financial literacy.
Okay.
They don't know what they're doing. So they'll take out a credit card here, a credit card there, and a credit card there. They might have their car on finance. I mean, a lot of young people are driving the top of the range cars.
Yeah, for real.
In lockdown, I bought a house in Middlesbrough, 51k.
Yeah.
A Range
Wow, that's cheap.
Thank you. Do you know what I mean? And it's just an investment property. It's paying for itself. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people, them Range Rovers are about 50k or whatever. When I bought my house in Middlesbrough, I had to it's a buy-to-let, so you have to put a 25% deposit down, which worked out to about 13,000 something. So my monthly repayments are like £290 a month. And then I get obviously the rest of the money. A Range Rover is like £500, £600. That's not even with the insurance. They call it 50 bags. 50 bags could have bought them a property as opposed to your car. Do you know what I mean?
Fair enough. Fair enough. When you put it like that, that is true. A 50k property or 50k car. I mean, if you presented that option to people, I think most people would say property.
Absolutely.
I think most people
Don't
just
know
don't
how-
think like that
Absolutely.
straight away.
And the
They think
fact
about the expensive car.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the property is an asset.
Yeah.
A car is a liability.
Yeah.
An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. And that's what a car does.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? And somebody said, Norma, I've got 100 grand. What should I do? Should I buy one property? I said, no, buy two. Do you know what I mean? 2 50 grand properties. You need as much streams of income as possible.
Yeah.
You're building up your property portfolio. It's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. And I go back to when I was working in the bank. My children were small. I was able to fly my children out every year. And as I said, my colleagues were saying, Norma, how are you doing this? Thank God my till balance, because they'd be saying I'd be teething out the bank's money to fly my children out. Do you know what I mean? But they was earning more money than me because they was working full time. And some of them had partners, but yet they were still not able to have the holidays that me and my children had.
Yeah.
So again, it's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have.
Yeah.
And it's the lack of knowledge, right? It was one of my daughter's birthdays in November, and I took her to the Savoy Hotel, and I got it on a deal. Do you know what I mean? £100 for 2 people, 3-course meal and a glass of Prosecco each. If that's not your budget, you can go to like the Hard Rock Cafe, £35 for 2 people, bottomless brunch.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, when it comes to living your best life, that's what I show people how to do. Sometimes there's a stigma as being a single parent that your children end up like vagabonds and then they live that less than life. We are living like kings and queens because even when I was shopping in Lidl's, for our breakfast, we was having smoked salmon and cream cheese bagels. That's what we was having for breakfast. Do you know what I mean? So whatever money I've got, I'm making it work for me. My children were wearing the best clothes that my money could buy. Yes, I would have to shop around, but I would get a bargain.
Yeah.
So if you need a bargain, I to just hook me up, whatever you need, whether it's a holiday. I mean, one of the times, because I I'm in a position now I can buy like nice things for myself. And I wanted to buy a high-end bag, and I'm in Harley Street, so Selfridges is around the corner. And I went into Selfridges and I saw this particular bag that I wanted to get. I was going to Bali like 4 days later, and I was fighting with myself saying, should I get it, should I not get it, should I get it? And I thought, hold on a minute, let me check with the airport to see if I could get it duty-free.
Yeah.
That's me shopping around again. Anyway, I phoned up the airport. My bag, that same bag that I saw in Selfridges, was £500 cheaper duty-free. What did I do? So I phoned up the airport, I booked my bag, and then you get a personal shopper. I felt like a celebrity. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I purchased my bag. So I was left £500 better off. What did I do with that money? I used £200 to make an overpayment on one of my mortgages. I used another £200 to book another holiday, and that was a holiday to Morocco.
Wow.
It was a 4-star, all-inclusive holiday to Morocco for £199.
That's insane.
That was one of my best holidays, to be honest with you. And then the final £100, I used that to go towards my spending money for the holiday in Bali. Okay. So I not only got my bag, I paid some money on my mortgage, I booked another holiday, and I had some money to go towards my spending money. That's what I mean about maximising your money and making your money work for you.
Yeah, that's important. So you feel like, in terms of the reason why people get debt, it's just that lack of education.
Absolutely.
Which makes them spend.
Yeah. Spend without knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because as I go back to saying, one of my clients, she had a credit card, and she said, Norma, for 2 years, she was trying to, and it was like 24 something APR.
Yeah.
She was trying to get it into a 0% credit card. 2 years.
Wow.
Just couldn't do it. And we had the first consultation session together, and I'd done it for it just there and then.
Yeah. Wow.
She said, I just can't believe it. It's taken me 2 years, and she still couldn't. So it's just a lack of knowledge, basic knowledge. Do you know what I mean? That we just haven't, people just haven't got.
Yeah. And then hopefully today we are giving people this knowledge. Hopefully the people are enjoying it. So what do you feel like is the impact, though, of, being in debt, like the impact it has on people's mental health? Because again, it does have that negative connotation.
Absolutely, yeah. So if somebody's struggling with their finances, if you've not got the foundation, because I just work with personal finance, and I see personal finance as the foundation of financial literacy. And, a lot of people come to me and say, Norma, I want to invest. And I'm saying to them, how is your financial situation? Do you have any debt? Do you know what I mean? What is your financial situation? And a lot of them are in debt. And I say to people, wanting to invest before understanding your financial situation and getting out of debt and being financial stable is like trying to take your A-levels without doing your GCSEs.
It's true.
It really is. True. And so for a lot of people that get themselves in debt and feel like they just can't get out of it. It's like a perpetual cycle that and they just can't see no way out of it. That in itself causes hopelessness. Yeah. It really does. And then that leads into like depression. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, what do I do?
100%.
And then it affects your sleep.
Yeah.
It affects, your eating patterns. It affects, your thought process. It takes away your peace.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're not able to make informed financial decisions because of just how depressed and how low it takes away your self-esteem. Do you know what I mean? You think you're not good enough. Do you know what I mean? You feel like you're not earning enough money to change your situation. A lot of people just feel trapped in this, feel stuck. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's affecting them. They're always anxious about their money. People get anxiety over checking their bank statement.
100%. I remember when I was younger, I used to definitely feel like that as well. Like before I got into the space where I'm very comfortable with my finance, I used to be one of those people that was spend money. I think people have heard this story so many times. Like I'll go out, spend a lot of money. I'll be scared to check my statements, but I kind of got over it. So I guess from my perspective, sometimes I feel like is being in debt that bad? Because yes, is it you can be in significant amounts of debt, right? And I don't want to minimize, being in debt as it's, but I think like your perspective, it really depends. If you're working towards clearing it, right? Then I don't think it's that bad. Because to me, like student loan, for instance, is a debt.
Absolutely.
People don't go crazy over that because they know that it's coming out of their monthly paycheck.
Yeah.
And I think they're comfortable with that or whatever. It's like, it doesn't feel like nothing to them. So I kind of see it like that. Any debt, as long as you are doing something
Manageable,
towards
what
it.
you're saying.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. It's about perspective.
Yeah.
Because how you may feel about debt is completely different to the next person. And for me, as a psychotherapist, you can't, and a money management consultant, I can't minimize what that means to you. Do you know what I mean? I have to come from your point of reference.
Yeah.
And that's how I work with you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's been very, very mindful. Once you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
people use debt all the time. They use debt to buy properties. Do you know what I mean? In America, I mean, I was listening to Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he bought his first property using a credit card.
Wow. I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah. He bought his first property using a credit card. So again, it goes back to financial education. In America, you can use debt to buy properties. You can use it for investments. Do you know what I mean? They're comfortable doing that because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
For somebody, Joe Bloggs that don't know what he's doing and tries to do that, he could get himself in so much trouble.
Yeah.
And then it'll all come on top, and then he can't manage, and then it's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But in America, for example, they use debt for a lot of things to build their wealth.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess what are some of the steps that somebody could take today, somebody that's watching and listening to this today, what are some of the steps that they can take to, one, become more comfortable with debt, maybe talking about it, maybe facing it, and also helping themselves, get out of debt?
I think the first thing to do is to understand your debt. What do I mean by that? Understand the figure of debt you're in. A lot of times people don't want to face that. Do you know what I mean? That is the very first step. Know what you're working with. Because it may not be as bad as what you think it is, or on the other end, it may be worse than what you think it is. But regardless, know what that figure is. Because once you understand what that figure is, the next step is putting together a debt plan of how you're going to pay off that debt. Now, it may be that you really want to pay off quickly and you've got the means to do that, or you're comfortable with paying it over time, like you say, your student finance, whatever. I tailor the work that I do to each client. So, for example, if somebody's, say, they're like 10K in debt, they're working, they're living at home, and they've got no money left at the end of the month. Then I go through, because budgeting is a technique and is combined with skills. If it was as easy as writing down your income and your expenditure, everybody would be doing it and it'd be working fine. People will tell you, I've tried budgeting, it doesn't work. As I said, it's a technique and there's layers of budgeting. So once I take them through my techniques and skills of budgeting, they understand it, they get a clearer picture. Within that, we devise a debt plan, which is comfortable for them. There's no point me saying, pay off £500 a month and then that's going to cause you anxiety because, you've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's about what is comfortable for you. How long do you want to take to pay this off? And we work within that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the quicker the better. But I mean, and especially if you're paying high rates of interest. So it's working with all of that.
Yeah.
Those different interest rates and getting them in order and working methodically to pay off those debts.
Yeah. So how can we be more comfortable talking about that and seek help? Because that's the important part. Because a lot of people are suffering in silence.
Absolutely.
Right now.
I think, you have to find, even if it's one person that you trust, that you can share your debt situation with. And if you can't find someone you can trust, then you may need to have to seek professional help. And it's about investing in yourself, right? Because, you have to start somewhere. And a lot of the times people try and do it themselves and they fail, they do it and they start for a couple of months, it's all going fine. Something happens and they're back to square one again. If that is you, I would definitely suggest get some professional help that can devise a proper debt plan for you to help you work through it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to happen. If you're in that situation today, I'll guarantee you next year or the year after, you'll still be in a similar position because you're trying to, you'll be yo-yoing backwards and forwards. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people, money is very sensitive.
It is very sensitive. It's so sensitive. That's why I like having these conversations so that we can make it not sensitive.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
It's fine. And I
yeah.
think if there was any time
Yeah.
to talk about debt and money, it's now, because we're in a
now,
cost
yeah.
of living crisis.
Yeah.
Everybody
Everybody's
is
going through
affected
it,
in
yeah.
one way or another.
Yeah.
So if you were to say, wow, my mortgage rate has gone up and it's, you know, affected my mortgage by £400 and that's affected. Do you know what I mean? People would
Yeah.
get that. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So whatever your situation is, this is the time to normalize it and
Yeah.
talk about it, because you know what, people feel the fear of being judged.
That's it. That's that is.
If
what
you're
it is,
seen
yeah.
as this person, and then somebody,
Yeah.
you was then to say, wow, my money's causing me a lot of pressure. Do you know what I mean? I'm not able to manage it. And I guess it's the way how you phrase it as well. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It could be like, you know, this cost of living crisis has made my mortgage go up, or it's made this go up, or my car loan, or I have to cut back, bro, or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That may be a way of, you know, talking about it and opening up the conversation, because it just takes one person
Yeah.
to start that conversation about where they are. Do you know what I mean? Then you find somebody else, oh, he's opened up about that. Do you know what I mean? Let me share a bit about myself.
Yeah. It's very important. I do agree. I feel like you definitely need to find that person that you trust, or if there's nobody you trust, like, seek professional help.
Yeah.
Like you
And
say,
there's
right?
lots of organizations out there that offer help, especially with debt, for free.
Okay, like who?
There's the National Deadline. There's Step Change.
Yeah.
There's Money Helper.
Okay.
And some people, although they're working, depending on what their salary is, they could also be entitled to some benefits. Now, the Money Helper, as a calculator, you put in all your income, and they can tell you whether or not you're eligible for any benefits.
Okay.
And there's another source of help as well from the government, and it's called Breathing Space. So basically what that is, once you've gone to one of those organisations to seek some help with your debt, they can then call up all your debtors for you to take that pressure, because it's so pressurized when you get all these letters and phone calls. Again, that causes people anxiety, it stresses people out, it depresses them. They're hiding from the phone calls and the letters and all the rest of it. So yeah, once you're engaging with one of these organizations that help people with debt, they can then apply for you to have this project called Breathing Space. And what that is, that gives you 90 days where none of the debtors can contact you.
Oh wow, I love that.
Yeah,
That's
and it's
amazing,
free. And if you've got mental health issues, that 90 days is wiped out, and it's for the whole time.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
So it's called Breathing Space, and it literally gives you that 90 days breathing space for you to work with those people that help with debt, to help sort out your money and, you know, ring up the debtors for you and take over all of that for you.
I did not know that.
Absolutely.
That is such a gem. So people, watchers, listeners, look, if you know somebody,
struggling with
this
debt.
is struggling with debt, reach out. That's amazing. That's an amazing initiative. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about spending, because spending is also like an area where people can, like, it can have like an impact on your mental health, right? Like, either from a perspective of you're spending a lot, you go crazy, and then you can start feeling bad.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe you're not spending enough, so then you're kind of like, you feel like you're not, your needs are not being met, or your wants are not being met. I guess from that perspective, right, what are some of the issues with that, of course? You know, because it leads to like feeling bad and stress. What are some of the issues, and how can you kind of like form a more healthy relationship with money?
You just took the words out of my mouth. That goes back to your relationship with money. So if you have a healthy relationship with money, you're happy to spend, you're okay to spend, you know how to manage it. Do you know what I mean? You're able to, if you're using your cards or whatever, you know, you've got a method of how you pay it off. It doesn't cause you any stress or anxiety. You view money as something that you respect and you value, then that's a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
If you have an unhealthy relationship, then that's a different issue. And so you could be frivolous with it, do you know what I mean? Just spending it left, right and centre, no regard for it. And then when you check your bank statement, or you get your bank statement, it's like, oh my God, you're ready to have a heart attack, because, you know, you racked up all this money.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's triggers, and it's about understanding your triggers. It could be I've had a hard day at work and I think, you know what, I'm going to go out and treat myself to a meal or a pair of shoes or whatever. That's your trigger. And it's understanding your triggers. And I teach people we all have triggers. Do you know what I mean? And it's about being mindful and aware of your triggers.
Yeah.
If you buy something out of impulse and you bring it home, you know, whether it's £5 or £500, you have the option to take it back.
That's true. You can. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you may feel, you know, we want instant gratification, right? And we get that when we purchase what we want because of a feeling, right?
Yeah, it makes us feel good. Yeah.
Absolutely. But then after you get home and you think about what I've spent, then you it's like, oh my God, why did I spend it? Da-da-da-da-da-da. You have the option to take it back. Do you know what I mean? But some people, you know, are not there and they don't think about taking it back. They think, oh, I've got it and I don't know what to do with it. A lot of people could do a car boot sale with all the things that they have in their house.
Yeah.
When I talk to teach my clients from a psychological perspective, there's two parts of the brain that are at work when it comes to spending. There's a part of the brain called the limbic system. Now, that's the impulsive gratification part of the brain that I want it now, I'm going to get it now, which I call the irresponsible child. And there's the other part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. Now, that's a responsible part of the brain, which makes rational decisions. And those parts of the brain are in constant conflict daily, every day. And it's not just for money, it's for food and all different things. So, for example, like, you know, you're on the internet, you see a Caribbean cruise. Before you know it, you swipe, you got your card out and that cruise is booked up.
Yeah.
Which part of the brain won that battle?
Irrational, probably.
The irrational, the limbic system, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, if you was able to restrain and discipline and think, you know, you're rational, you're reasoning. That's the prefrontal cortex that is empowering the limbic system. So they're in constant battle daily. And the more you exercise one part of that brain, that will be the dominating part of the brain.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That will win the battles. So people are really interested when I talk about that. So the next time you want to buy something, you have to think, is it a need or is it a want?
Yeah.
And you'll feel yourself
So
in
categorize
that.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll feel yourself in that battle.
Yeah.
But you know what's happening. In your brain, psychologically, something is really taking place.
Okay. Wow. So the tip there for that situation, whenever it's any spending situation, is categorizing it in a way to say, is this something I really, really need? Should I just pause? Should I just wait for a few days and actually come back to it? Okay, I really, really want it, or actually, nah.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. I like that. Rational and rational vein. I haven't heard of that in relation to money. I've heard of that like in terms of like irrational and rational, like in terms of like other choices, but money. Yeah, when you put it like that, it's true. Yeah.
It is.
Wow.
You know, you have that battle, right? When you want to buy that £500 pair of shoes and you know you've only got £5 on your left on your card. Do you know what I mean? Or the last £500 and that's what lasts you for the month for all your outgoings. And a lot of people will let the limbic system win. Do you know what I mean? And it's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more. And a lot of people are leaning to the instant gratification. So that's what's winning all the time. And they don't know what's happening. They can't control themselves. And I can't do it. I don't have to manage it. And da-da-da-da. When I explain and break it down to them, this is what's taking place. You do have the power. You do have the power to overpower that muscle, that part of your brain. And the more you start tapping in and using it, just give it a try. Take a step back, take a deep breath, think about what's happening, and then ask yourself, is it a need or is it a want?
I love that. Epic. So on the flip side, right, we talked a little bit about budgets, right? And I feel like you say, for some people it doesn't work. So, and people can feel restrictive about that, right? So I guess, like, what tips do you have for someone to, you know, set and stick to a budget and feel good about it? They don't feel bad. They don't feel like, oh, we've got a budget again. I actually feel good and empowered to, you know, stick to what I've set myself.
A budget is a powerful weapon. It's such a powerful tool in your hand, because it's like it's giving you a picture of your life, and it's showing you exactly where your money is going. It's showing you where, if it's going where it shouldn't be going, that you're now empowered to do something about it. So you should never see a budget as something as restrictive. It's something that's like a roadmap. It's almost like, I give an analogy for people with a budget or without a budget. Friends in a car going on a long distance journey, and the petrol gauge in your car doesn't work.
Yeah.
Most of your journey is going to be motorway. So you're saying to your friends, we're going on this trip, but you know what? My petrol gauge don't work. How do you think that will make you and people in that car feel for that long journey that you're about to embrace?
You probably don't. You don't know how far you're gonna get.
And also, it gives you a sense of like anxiety because, is it going to get us to our destination?
Yeah, or not,
So,
yeah.
but then that same journey you're going on with your friends, that the petrol gauge is working and you've got enough petrol in it, when you're going to need to top up. That same journey will be a pleasurable journey. You've got nothing to worry about.
True. That is very true. Yes, when you put it like that, you're right. Yeah.
So that's the difference between having a budget and not having a budget.
Yeah.
Having a budget, you are in control of not only the situation, but your emotions. Not being in control causes the anxiety and the stress. Do you know what I mean? So you're putting yourself in that situation because you're not financially in control of your money by not having this budget.
Yeah.
It's so important. It's something that you should embrace. Something that you should enjoy because it's showing you, and especially if it's a budget that's calculating as you go along, it's showing you what you've got left.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then at that point, you're able to make an informed decision as to what to do next. Without a budget, it's just like without knowing about the petrol gauge, oh my God, is it going to break down in a minute? Are we going to break down in the dark and be left on the motorway? How would that affect your mental health? Do you know what I mean? You'll be so stressed out. Anything could happen. Somebody could attack you. Do you know what I mean? All of those thoughts and feelings, that's the same sort of thing that happens when people don't know what's going on with their finances.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. When you put it like that, you're absolutely right. If you were in a car and you didn't know how much, you couldn't see your petrol gauge, you would be very, very stressed.
Thank
But
you.
they put that in there to, like, so it doesn't bother you. Oh, okay, petrol's running down. Okay, let me go and top up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
You're in control of that
You're in control,
situation
Yeah,
without knowing. And that's the thing people don't know.
yeah.
Without their budget, you don't know what's going on. It's in the
That's
back of your
true.
head, like I said.
Yeah.
When I do my financial boot camp, people write down their income and expenditure. By the time they get to the financial boot camp, and I start taking them through the techniques and the skills, they're hundreds of, they just can't believe it.
Yeah.
Today, with my financial boot camp, the person that has spent the most amount of money in a month just on takeaways and eating out, it was £800.
On what?
She nearly cried.
Wow.
Literally.
But she didn't know that.
Did not
That's
know.
crazy.
She thought it was about, the most it would have been about £200.
Yeah.
And that's not even including shopping. That is just takeaways, eating out.
Wow.
That's again using your card.
crazy.
Thank you. This is how much you're off balance because you don't know.
Wow. That's the thing. And that is what it is, right? It's like, it's a lack of visibility.
Absolutely.
So the budget's quite important, right? So how can somebody kind of like, I guess think about that in a more positive way? What do you think?
Just to tell themselves, if I have a budget, I have control of my money, I have control of my life.
Okay.
Because your money is a big part of your life, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to be happy and live the quality of life that you deserve, you're working for it, why shouldn't you enjoy it? And to have that financial peace and financial empowerment.
Yeah.
This is going to change my life, having a budget.
Yeah. I completely agree. Another thing is savers sometimes as well. Savers, you're doing well, but I've got to get at them as well
Yeah, of
because
course.
sometimes they have a struggle to spend. And you mentioned it as well, like, sometimes, and I think I have to be honest, sometimes I think when you're always battling with everything, right? Like, okay, I can always make better use. How do you not feel bad about spending your money?
Well, that's when I go into the psychology part of it. It's understanding their relationship with money.
Yeah.
Where has that come from?
Yeah.
Because some things we have to learn, unlearn and relearn.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that you've come from an environment where there was arguments about money or there was a lack of money. So now I'm able to save my own money. I'm not spending it. I don't want to spend it. Do you know what I mean? Where has that come from?
Okay.
Because life is about balance, right?
Yeah.
Having that balance. It's okay to enjoy your money
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy your life as long as you're doing it the right way with the right financial education.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I completely agree. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about I love this analogy. So think like a bank.
Yeah.
So you said that you have a unique system that transformed you from a place where you were on a part-time salary, which you mentioned on the podcast, with 3 children and a mortgage to pay, and now you transform that to like doing your work as a psychotherapist, your business in terms of the money consultancy, and also 7-figure property portfolio.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of an insight into your system, and then how does someone think like a bank?
Okay. So think like a bank derived from, I was working in a bank and I was seeing how much money they was making from people like you and me through interest charges and the products that we got from them, i.e. mortgages, loans, overdrafts. And I thought, hold on a minute, I could do the same thing for myself, what banks do to me. So for example, if you take out a credit card, they're charging you APR, say 18.9% on a $2,000 credit card. But if you were to put $2,000 in the bank, they'd be paying you, 2% interest, 1% interest.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I live my life on 0% credit cards. My credit is good. So if I want to buy anything, this is all factored into my budget. Whatever I spend, I use my card. I pay it off over within time. So I use the banks. I don't need to borrow any money from anybody. My friends I don't need to borrow any money from friends or family. My friends are NatWest, Lloyds Bank, TSB, wherever I can get my 0% credit card. And so that's how I use, that's how I live my life. So I use a credit card of a 0% term on it, whether it's got 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, and I pay it back at my leisure, not paying a penny in interest.
Yeah.
And so I'm still saving. This, my budget is functioning. It's a functioning budget where I'm saving. I've got my emergency fund.
Yeah.
I'm spending, but I'm factoring what I'm using the bank's money for. I'll take my time to pay it off. So that's where think like a bank came from. I'm living my life. And so, instead of like taking, one time I wanted to decorate my front room and I'm thinking, do I take the money out of my savings? No, I'll use the bank's money, 0% credit card, and I'll take my time and pay it off. Do you know what I mean? Not pay no interest. Do you know what I mean? To them. And making my money work for me. My savings is building up, and then I can, go on to invest and do what I need to do with my money. So my money's intact. And the money that I use, to do whatever I need to do, I take my time to pay it off in leisure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. And you talked about as well, I saw on your website that you paid off your mortgage early, right? How did you achieve this, and what was the benefits of doing that?
So I paid it off. It was a 25-year mortgage, and I paid it off in 10 years by making overpayments, basically doubling up on the payments, saved about, 20 grand or so in interest.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you know what? I'm not giving the bank a penny of my money. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So whatever way I can maximize it, whatever way it comes,
yeah.
Because when you put your money in the bank, do you think it's just sitting there? No, they're using it. Absolutely, to invest in products and whatever they're doing. Do you know what I mean? So I'm using their money to do what I need to do for myself, as well as living, using my money to do what I need to do for myself.
Yeah. It's very, very important.
Absolutely.
Very, very important. So great in terms of overpaying your mortgage.
Yeah.
What do you feel like are the benefits of you doing that?
Well, I didn't give the bank that. The money that I saved on paying my mortgage is in my pocket. It's not in the bank's.
Okay. So now that you don't have a mortgage, you got extra income. Basically.
That's my money.
Yeah.
To do what I want to. Why am I giving them my money to do what they want to?
Yeah. I love that.
That is the benefit.
I love that. So so tying over to that, at the same time, you was also building your 7-figure property portfolio, and you bought a property in Miami. What was that about?
Because I travel a lot, and I've got family in the US. And my uncle was saying, Norma, the amount of times you come to the US, why don't you just get a property here?
Okay.
I didn't need no more encouragement. But how that came about is because when I bought my first property at 21.
Yeah.
And that was from my dad's advice. That's how that came about. But I had an endowment policy with my mortgage. And at the end of when my mortgage matured, I was left with this lump sum. And it was like, what am I going to do with this lump sum? I need to maximize my money.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's what I used for my deposit for my house in Miami. Because I want to semi-retire in Miami.
Yeah.
It's only like 1 hour, 20 minutes away from Jamaica. Do you know what I mean? So it's like going to France for the day. Do you know what I mean? So it's about quality of life, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a lovely property. It's, you know, gated community. I have to pay for that. That does cost quite a bit of money, to be honest with you. But at least it's safe.
Yeah.
And it's got like 2 clubhouses, which are like 5-star hotels. And they've got like the saunas, marble saunas and all. It's just, there's a golf course. There's a Marriott hotel on the complex. It's like from Bow to Mile End. That's how, do you know what I mean? How big it is.
Yeah.
It's equivalent to our Chelsea. And it's also important about when you're buying and, you know, demographics again. Because of where it is, I can command the rent that I get.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's a good, and it's paying for itself again.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
all
had
your investments up there for yourself.
yeah, so I've had it since 2009.
Wow.
And I think I've only had to pay the mortgage, I think, twice, because just waiting for a tenant to pay. But the tenants are paying my mortgage.
Wow. That's amazing. So, okay, so I want to get your perspective of this, because obviously you've built a great level of wealth in your property, your businesses, in your career, right? So what actions in terms of like building wealth can someone take today to start building wealth?
Yeah. I guess it just depends, because depending on how much risk that you're willing to take, obviously, the quicker the revenue that you get, the higher the risk, right? And so property is like a low risk investment, because, you know, although properties might go up and go down, they're kind of stable. Do you know what I mean? Then you get into like stocks and shares and things that I would say. The next thing is, I mean, for people that, I mean, investments is not my, you know, I work with personal finance, but what I've done, you know, stocks and shares, ISA, that's a good way for somebody just to start, to get on the platform. You can open up an ISA with £1. You can invest £20,000 in a year in multiple ISAs, as long as they equate to £20,000, and it's tax free. Stocks and shares ISA might be a bit more risky, but at least it will help your money grow quicker. Do you know what I mean? There's all different types of ISAs. For somebody that wants to get on the property ladder, they can invest in a lifetime ISA. You put the maximum in it of £4,000 a year, and the government will match that with a £1,000. They'll give you 25% of your investment. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of the way that I would go. Do you know what I mean? If you're more risk adverse and you want to go into crypto or something like that, then that's out of my remit. I got burnt by that, but you know, it is what it is. But I would start off with, definitely, everybody would tell you to start off with with the ISAs, they're tax free. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Norma. So, in terms of, you know, we're in the cost of living crisis, costs keep going up, news is very negative. In what ways can people have a more positive perspective on things, and what strategies can people deploy to help them in this cost of living crisis?
My strategy is I don't listen to the news. That would affect my mental health. It changes daily, and it's so negative. Do you know what I mean? I go back to my budget, knowing what you're working with. Of course, when you go to the supermarket, things have gone up. Do you know what I mean? But I shop when I see something on sale. I'll buy in bulk. I buy, to Costco's, because when my money started to work for me and I was in a better position, it was like, you know, I'm never going Lidl's again. I'm only using Andrex toilet paper and do you know what I mean? I upgraded. But then my sister introduced me to Costco's, and, you know, they do like the big, you know, batches of toilet paper, which are, you know, a good value for money. And when you apply for Costco's card, you get 2. Share that with somebody. Do you know what I mean? Who might not be able to afford the Costco card. Share it with a friend, share it with a neighbour, share it with a family member, and they have access to that as well. Do you know what I mean? There's different things that you can do. When I see things on sale, like soap powder or whatever, I will let a few of my friends know and whatever. It's about sharing information. Do you know what I mean? To help one another. You might know somebody that, you know, can't afford to cook a meal, and you have surplus. You know, it's about helping people, you know, make a meal, make a batch and take some over to somebody, especially people with children and things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's about community, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all about community.
I mean, back home, that's what they would do, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where they live, in their villages or in their community, they would help one another.
Yeah. Amazing. It's been such a great conversation, Norma. I felt like I've learned so much, especially like from your story, you know, the things that you've learned in terms of working in a bank, even from as being a psychotherapist. It's been such a great conversation, and definitely would want to have a follow-up conversation as well. I'm sure that, you know, the watchers and listeners feel the same as well, because again, it's always great to speak to somebody who has a lot of experience, you know, and it gives us a bit of a different perspective on how we can tackle things. So where can people find you if they want to obviously reach out to you and connect with you? You mentioned that you have, I saw on your website, you do financial therapy, boot camps, courses, and you also help people in terms of getting into property. How can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on my website. So my website is Norma Cassius. That's CASS for Sierra, I for Indigo, U for Uniform, S for Sierra.com. On Instagram, I'm think.like.a.bank.
Okay.
They can DM me on Instagram or just Google me, Norma Cassius, and everything about me comes up.
Yeah. Amazing. Like I said, it's been such a great conversation. I feel like with your 20 years of experience, we've learned a lot from this. Do you have any final words for the watchers and listeners?
Yeah, I normally use a quote from Nelson Mandela. He said, "He never loses in life. He either wins or he learns."
I love that. That's an amazing way to end it. You either live or you learn.
No, he never loses in life.
Yeah.
He either wins or he learns.
I love that. Win or learn, not win or lose. Yeah,
That's right.
That's
Win or
amazing.
he doesn't see it as a loss that he's lost something. He sees it as he's learned, and you know better for next time.
Yeah. Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Norma. I appreciate you
You're
featuring on the
welcome.
podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast. We'll see you next week's episode.